President-elect Trump to name former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi as his new choice for U.S. Attorney General. She is a much less controversial and much more confirmable pick than Matt Gaetz. She has been a longtime ally to the president and an advisor in his first administration. We had her on the show recently after the second assassination attempt on President Trump to discuss Florida conducting its own investigation as opposed to just assassination attempts. Pam, good to see you. Thank you for being here. All right. Tell me you aren't going to defend Governor. I don't know what you're going to say on this, but are you going to defend Governor DeSantis' position on this?
First, it's great to see you, Dan. I've known you for many years. It's great to see you. So here's who I'm going to defend. I'm going to defend Donald Trump, who's the victim in this case. And to disagree with you for a moment, nothing about this case is done in the usual course of business. You've got Donald Trump. So he's a victim, of course, of not one, but two attempted assassinations. Two. Yet the agency who's investigating him wanting to lock him up forever, the FBI and the DOJ, they raided his home at Mar-a-Lago. The director of the FBI, after the first assassination attempt, said, oh, President Trump may have been hit by a piece of stray glass. We all know he was shot. And the head of the FBI in the Southern District of Florida, Dan, made vicious statements about the president that he had to remove from social media. So put yourself in his place, in the victim's place, Donald Trump. You have Ron DeSantis, whatever his motive is, coming out saying, hey, we have parallel jurisdiction. And then you have the Federal Department of Justice. You're a victim. Who would you choose to want to make sure you're safe if you're Donald Trump? Now, having said that, though, I do not know the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District, and I am praying and hoping that he is a fair man and that this is going to be prosecuted wisely and smartly by the feds. I can't imagine anyone in this country who wouldn't want this monster locked up forever. At all. So
I accept your argument there about looking at it through Donald Trump's prism, right? Through his mind, that he may say, look, I don't want these guys.
All right, my friends, J.R. Dukes at your service. Appreciate everybody joining me today. And of course, we are celebrating today in part the fact that Donald Trump has nominated former Attorney General right here from my home state of Florida to be the next head of the Department of Justice. She obviously replaces Matt Gaetz, who basically never really had a chance because of all the rhinos. And, you know, I have to say in the case of Matt Gaetz, he definitely is the kind of individual that is not easy to make friends with. I think that's very clear and self-evident. But having said that, I think it's very likely, very possible that it was Donald Trump's plan all along to put in AG Pam Bondi. She has been a very she has always been on Donald Trump's side. I don't think they've ever had any daylight between them on this. But before we drill down into that any further, let's make sure everybody can hear me fine. We just went live on all the platforms. Hello to everyone on the X platform, and of course on our home at YouTube, and our friends on the Twitch platform. If you have any issues as far as hearing me, please let me know. If you have any comments, questions, if you would like to talk about any particular subject, put it in the comments if you like. Also, this is what we call a open forum discussion. If you would like to join by video, perhaps on your phone or whatever, you can do so by clicking the link that I just put in the description right there. It should be, according to the way StreamYard is working now, that should in perpetuity be the link to join any of our live conversations, should you be so inclined. If you are like a lot of people, you don't want to appear on video, no problems, ladies and gentlemen. You can simply call in. It's kind of like that show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? You don't have to appear on camera. You can simply just pick up the phone and ask a question or make a comment. It's whatever you would like to do. So once again, we're very happy about the events that have happened in the wake of Donald Trump's historic election. Just going to make sure we got all our housekeeping items in order. I want to quickly welcome to the chat my friend Sapphire Ridge News. Thank you for being here, Sapphire. It's always a pleasure. And of course, everyone's favorite Nana, American Nana from the West Virginia Appalachia. Thank you for being here as always. And I know my friend Sapphire all the way up in his home state or his current living state of Montana. So thank you for being with us. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Come on in. This is the home of the free-minded patriots. That's what we are all about. My mission in life is to put an end to the dreaded disease of indoctrination, helping you live your best life possible by shedding on the light on certain things that you need to know to live your best life possible. I love to focus on current events, politics. Recently, we really have been supporting our favorite president and President Trump-elect, Donald Trump. In addition to that, on this channel, you'll find information on how to deal with the police, asset protection, police misconduct, just basically looking at people that are in power and holding them accountable, exposing a light where light needs to be shine. I love following the court system of all 50 states, included but not limited to our great United States Supreme Court. So that's my 2 cents. Let me just check the comments real quick. Ukraine is good. Been digging on that topic a bit today. Fantastic, American. And I know that a lot of people, I have actually had 3 or 4 different emails on that subject of Ukraine. I just hung up the phone with someone that I was talking to prior to going live, and they were very concerned, like a lot of Americans are, pertaining to the situation in Ukraine. And I pretty well had the conversation that I had with all y'all the other day of exactly how this has happened. Everyone here knows that I am a patriot. I bleed red, white, and blue. I love everything about America. Having said that, it is definitely, in large part, the fault of the United States, believe it or not, because of this war, and it has to do with NATO, the expansion of NATO. We made promises to Russia, to Putin, a long time ago. This goes back even under the direction of Boris Yeltsin. Y'all remember him? He was very friendly to America and, of course, was friends with Bill Clinton. And he was just a very progressive Russian. He was looking to spread freedom through Russia. Unfortunately, his replacement that we all know very well, the current president Putin, that was hand-selected by Boris Yeltsin, turned out to be a bitter disappointment. He acted like he was going to be a free market type of guy, a will of the people, a populist. He was all about democracy. And ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, that never come to pass, as we can see. But remember this, in that situation in Ukraine right now, if it was something that happened in the United States and the shoe was on the other foot, so to speak, there's no way the United States would allow one of our current states or a former state to essentially line up with a Warsaw Pact, which basically means Russia. We would not allow it. As a matter of fact, a lot of the nonsense going on right now in the world is really hard to explain and get our mind around. You realize there was a big climate meeting or whatnot down in South America. It was in Brazil. And remember, it's the same one where Joe Biden kind of got lost in the Amazon, right? He took a picture or gave a quick speech and kind of walked off into the Amazon, which is probably a fitting in for his presidency. But the point I was going to make is that this goes all the way back to something called the Monroe Doctrine. You probably remember that. You might remember that all the way back from school. And the bottom line is we pretty well controlled everything in our hemisphere. Bernie Sanders, we know the great Senator Bernie Sanders. I'm exaggerating, obviously. Definitely a little kooky, definitely out there on the left on a lot of issues. One thing him and I do agree with that may surprise you is, like we learned in school many, many years ago, the United States kind of had an understanding with Russia a long time ago. We would control things that are in what's called our sphere of influence, which is pretty well the Americas. Additionally, Russia would be primarily responsible for dealing with issues in their sphere of influence, which generally is Europe and where Russia is located in the Asia continent. And over the years, that has become more murky, more complicated. And frankly, we probably should have stuck with that type of doctrine more or less. It would have probably been more beneficial for everyone. But the nexus of this problem, make no mistake about it. I don't care what anybody says to you, what anybody says otherwise. This problem in Ukraine was a direct result of what is happening with NATO and its expansion. It's unfortunate. I am confident, though. I want to make sure I'm really clear about this. I'm very confident that what is going on right now is something that's being coordinated with President Trump-elect. I have no doubt in my mind that although we despise President Joe Biden, he, as part of his legacy, as part of being an American, he wants to hand off the presidency in some type of orderly fashion. This nonsense that he wants to start World War III, don't believe that at all. There's not a human being alive that wants thermonuclear war. There's just no way. It is the kind of war that just simply cannot be fought and, of course, cannot be won at this particular time. So what I'm saying is that they are working together, even though that fact is not published. They have to be working together. The the power of the United States cannot be underestimated. I want to be very clear about this. There's no reason for us to walk around in fear. We just have to kind of leave it with God and hope that God is blessing our leaders to the point where they're going to have cooler heads prevail and work this situation out. I had someone, I think it was last week, said something about, well, the people in Ukraine, they deserve their freedom. They deserve this, they deserve that. You know what? I agree with that. If they want to be free, they need to be free. But we don't need to die for that. They need to fight their own war with their own blood and their own treasure. The reality is Ukraine has been part of Russia for a long time. It's only been a independent country, if you will, for the last 30 years. In the scope of time, in the scope of history, that is a very short time frame. And the person I was talking with, as I was mentioning earlier, really just did not understand exactly how all this worked. And I have mentioned here before, Ukraine has always been kind of a heart of Russia, if you will. Even Mikhail Gorbachev, the former leader that served with Ronald Reagan when Ronald Reagan was in power back in the 1980s, Mikhail Gorbachev himself, I don't remember if it was his mom or his dad, but I believe it was his mom that was Ukrainian. His dad was Russian. That just shows you how close that part of the world is, and they have always been part of each other. Mikhail Gorbachev said that his mother used to sing him lullabies that were Ukrainian lullabies. So I just kind of want to put all that in perspective. I hope that kind of helps out. Welcome again to Sapphire. Appreciate you being here. And thank you all for the lively comments. It always makes for an interesting discussion. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to Donald Trump. Obviously, he's in the middle of his transition. And real quick, a quick overview. We're going to hit the highlights of what's going on right now in the Trump administration as far as his picks. I got a few comments and a few interesting things to talk about. And then I actually want to change focus just a little bit today because I want to talk about some police matters and just some issues that's going on with the police right now today. I also want to kind of drill down on some of Donald Trump's choices for these cabinet positions. And one of the main topics, as you see with the thumbnail, is guess what? One of Donald Trump's picks, and I'll go ahead and give you a little bit of a spoiler alert, the guy that is tapped to head the F of the CCC, the FCC, Federal Communications Commission. You have the ladies of the View that are acting in a way they normally don't act, in the sense that they are being very cautious, very deliberate what they're saying, and they are giving legal notices every chance they get the opportunity to do so. It's kind of hilarious to see it. You probably have seen some memes and some other postings on X about it, but I want to take a look at a clip of video today, point out a few obvious things. Then I want to show you why they are doing what they're doing in such a cautious manner, being very careful what they say. And then after they say it, they're giving legal disclaimers right back behind them right there. So, all right. Now, we have had news that came down yesterday pertaining to the New York case, this bogus case of lawfare. And ladies and gentlemen, this case is something that I know has aggravated you. It has aggravated me. It is extremely unfortunate that our country, under the leadership of Joe Biden and these woke Democrats, have decided to engage in this type of nonsense that has basically taken the United States and turned it into what I can only describe as a banana republic. And it has taken our just everything that's been in the American judicial tradition and turned it upside down. It's just sad to see that they have taken us to this particular stage. But the good news is I think everything is lining up. The fact that Donald Trump elect, the president elect, is something that is going to make all of this fall into the right place. And unfortunately, I think Donald Trump's going to have no choice but to go after the people that went after him. And I think in large part, one of the main reasons he's going to have to do that, surprise, they're not leaving him alone. Letitia James out of New York, Fani Willis in Georgia. You even have some people in Arizona, not limited to Jack Smith. These people are not giving up. Alvin Bragg, they still want to hold this New York case until Donald Trump's out of office at 82 years of age, and then see if they can find a way to put him in prison at that time. And that's just not going to happen. It's not going to be allowed to happen. And the crack in the wall, so to speak, that we've been looking for has finally come to fruition, because the judge overseeing that case, Judge Merchant, had decided that, hey, I am going to delay the case, but I'm going to go ahead and consider motions to dismiss the case. And he gave Donald Trump's attorneys a certain amount of time to respond with that motion, and then Alvin Bragg for the city of New York City to respond accordingly. I think we'll see. Judge Merchant is looking for a way out. One of the many reasons they cannot wait 4 years is because it's probably unconstitutional. You cannot have something like this hanging over a president, a jail sentence. You cannot have the judicial branch effectively controlling the executive branch. As a matter of fact, it is a executive branch of a state government that would potentially hold power over the federal executive branch, the embodiment of the executive branch, aka the president of the United States. It's just, I think it would be unconstitutional. And there's a simple problem with the law, the state law. The state law of New York State says that once a trial has been had and there's been, quote unquote, a conviction, the court must, I repeat, must rule and pass sentence within 1 year, no more than 1 year. And of course, if they effectively stay the sentencing part for 4 years, that would violate New York law. Listen, I'll use their own words against them. No one's above the law, right? Well, Donald Trump is not below the law either. He's not better than the law, but he's not below the law. And if the rules apply to me and to you, they should also apply to Donald Trump. If the laws favorably protect him, so be it. It's just the way it's got to be. So my prediction, one way or the other, these cases are all finished. These cases are all over. If Merchant comes back and agrees to go ahead and delay it for 4 years, and he's not going to allow the motion to dismiss to be entered and kind of wipe away the case, then what I see happening, ladies and gentlemen, is you're going to have one of the federal court of appeals take the situation up, and it's probably going to be disposed of pretty quickly. I am going to go ahead and just go on a limb here. I predict all of these cases will be wrapped up no later than before Donald Trump takes the oath of office. I think it's going to be a constitutional situation. They're going to have to do it for the sake of the United States Constitution. I really just think it's that simple. It's not something we're going to have to take too deep of a dive in and do too much guessing. They have to do this, and we'll see exactly what happens. In addition to that, if I was on the other side of the coin, if I was the judge, the prosecutor, the local AG, whatever, I would be trying to get in the good graces of the future president-elect, aka Donald Trump, because I would not want to be in a situation to where I'm going to just effectively encourage him to keep coming after me. That's something I wouldn't want to do, and I'm sure y'all can see where I'm coming from on that. So let's go ahead and dive into this next video. This has to do specifically with Jack Smith. We know sweet Jack Smith, a loyal American patriot. That is a joke. The bottom line is this piece here is going to clarify and tell us exactly what Donald Trump's going to do to Jack Smith as soon as he's able to do so. Meaning the moment after he takes the oath of office as president of the United States, he's going to look at Jack and say, Jack, you're fired. So let's just take a quick peek at this, and then we'll talk about it.
The Washington Post reports that President-elect Trump plans to fire the entire team that worked under special counsel Jack Smith at the Justice Department. Those DOJ employees worked on 2 federal prosecutions against the incoming president. The report adds that Trump is planning to assemble teams within the department to investigate alleged fraud in the 2020 election. Let's work on unpacking some of this as we move forward. More on the President-elect Trump's plans for the Justice Department in particular. We are joined by former federal prosecutor Andrew Cherkasky. Thank you so much for giving us a little time on this Saturday afternoon, Andrew. We greatly appreciate it. Kicking things off with just the first start, the idea that an entire team might be fired. Now, it's not unusual for an incoming president, incoming administration to bring in new people, new teams, particularly when legal concerns are made, AGs all across the nation. Your thoughts on this particular headline?
Well, when you look at the people who worked under Jack Smith, you have to think about the credibility of the actions that they brought. First, we have an election that just strongly communicated that the American public vehemently disagrees with what Jack Smith had done.
Quick note here, too. I don't know that we ever on this channel had time to dissect completely the history of Jack Smith. Jack Smith has been a failure for a long time. Make no mistake about it. He has a history of being a failure. He is the prosecutor. I believe it was the former governor. It was either Virginia or West Virginia. He went after him and his wife for alleged campaign violations by accepting gifts or monies or something to that effect. And here's the bottom line. It was originally he received a conviction and then it was appealed, and between the Court of Appeals, Supreme Court, he was totally reversed because the alleged misconduct that that particular governor was doing was not conduct that was illegal. As a matter of fact, if the conduct that he went after that governor and his wife for was illegal, there's not a politician in the United States that could not end up in custody or incarcerated as a result of that. Additionally, after his huge, humiliating loss in that particular case, he decided he was too embarrassed and he went overseas and he worked in some of these world courts, if you will. He went after people that were allegedly committing crimes against humanity, that type of stuff. Then, of course, he stopped that cold turkey, came back on home when Joe Biden decided that, hey, I need you to start engaging in that lawfare against Donald Trump. He just announced that he wants to be the president again, and we have to stop him because he is Hitler. And of course, you can see how that worked out for him. But just remember, this Jack Smith, loser. This guy's been a loser for a long time.
Over the last 4 years. But then you have to look at the fact that these attorneys working under Jack Smith were pushing a novel legal issue that failed at almost every turn, to include as it went up to the Supreme Court. So if those are the attorneys that were working there, does Donald Trump really want those attorneys to continue in the DOJ? And so I think it's absolutely appropriate to be thinking about and talking about the idea that those folks may be well suited to leave the DOJ. We're not talking criminal prosecutions of those folks, but I think the idea of seeing them out the
He's talking about personnel changeovers of some of these attorneys at the Department of Justice. I can assure you this, ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump is going to clean house. He's going to mop out what he calls the swamp, these individuals, these attorneys that engage in this lawfare. He's going to scrape them clean.
Door is probably wise.
And now shifting gears just a little bit to the AG pick, Pam Bondi. This is a big pick, a Trump loyalist, someone that he has a lot of confidence in, as one would expect. But there's also some criticism coming down. Here's Ellie Honig. She is the former assistant U.S. attorney out of the Southern District of New York, talking about Bondi's pick.
There's nothing wrong or unusual with an attorney general who shares the same politics and ideology as the president. That's the way these things work. But I think the big problem with Pam Bondi is she was a vocal 2020 election denier. And I think that raises legitimate questions about her independence and her credibility. And I expect that to be a sticking point when she goes in front of the Senate.
Boy, doesn't that just irritate the bejesus out of you when you hear that? You got these woke Democrats, and they still believe their own nonsense, despite this devastating loss that they just suffered. If you don't believe in this climate change, you're a climate denier. If you don't believe that the elections were perfect and that there was no irregularities, nothing to be concerned with, you're an election denier. I love the way they try to brand people. It's actually a good idea to get your message out. If you quickly try to define your opposition before they define you or they define themselves, that's generally the way to go. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump is a genius at this particular piece of PR, but that's exactly what they have successfully done with this denier stuff. And what they're doing is they're implying, I mean, who wants to be a denier, right? It just sounds bad, like you're in a third world state of mind, like you're not able to intelligently decipher what is real, what is not real. And it's just a way to shut down debate, to scare people into submitting to what they want you to do. And again, I'm all about ending indoctrination, and this is one of the keys they use to try to keep us all locked in our minds, so to speak, because they want us too afraid to, frankly, speak truth about what's going on as we see it.
So he's hitting on something that is also covered in that Washington Post article about President Trump looking back at the 2020 election and seeking answers. Your thought on the president picking Bondi, and what also his focus potentially on looking back at that 2020 election?
Well, Pam Bondi gives President Trump really everything that he was hoping to get from Matt Gaetz, plus much more. Her credibility as a very effective AG in the state of Florida, which has particularly MAGA type politics, and she's proven herself effective. Matt Gaetz had not run a similar office, so I think that she really is a stronger pick to be able to perpetuate the policies and the ideas that Donald Trump has for the DOJ. As for the criticism of her, I mean, if you want to go back and continue to
Andrew, I'm so sorry, we are running out of time.
Folks, the way I see this, and this again is my opinion, I think that there is, and I'm not a big conspiracy guy. I am not a big conspiracy buff type of individual. You know, y'all all know that. It's just not me. I just don't. I don't go around looking for something to sensationalize anything. But think about this with me. He picked someone like Matt Gaetz, and I believe it was a legitimate pick. But at the same time, I think there was an ulterior motive. There's just too many coincidences, and I don't believe in coincidence, almost, period. The fact is, within a day or two, that so-called report from the House of Representatives was about to come out pertaining to Matt Gaetz. It was something that he definitely did not want released. I wouldn't want it released. Whether I'm innocent or guilty of something, who wants some type of devastating, embarrassing report to be released? Nobody would want that, right? You wouldn't want it. I wouldn't want it. Additionally, think about this. I think it's possible that AG Pam Bondi was who Donald Trump had in mind all along. Again, they have been connected together professionally, and she has been a fervent supporter of President-elect Donald Trump for quite some time. So this could have been part of the plan, so to speak. Mark my words, I believe that Matt Gaetz is going to end up working for President Donald Trump at some capacity on some level. And don't discount the fact that he might not end up as an AG. It's entirely possible that Pam Bondi could be there and serve for ever how long Donald Trump wants her to serve. Then, say the Senate goes on recess for 10 days or more, then, for example, Pam Bondi could step aside, she could resign, and then Donald Trump could go ahead and put Matt Gaetz in that position as a what do they call that? It's just the Congress is out. I can't draw the word here. It's basically a recess appointment. Put her in as a recess. I put him in as a recess appointment at that particular time. But there's just a lot of interesting things pertaining to Matt Gaetz, pertaining to the timing and the way things just kind of worked out. I also think it's possible that the nomination of Matt Gaetz was put there to effectively take the attention, the eyes, the criticism off of someone like Tulsi Gabbard, or the guy Pete Hegseth, that we've been talking about a lot on this program. It is possible. We may never know, but I think that is one viable option that we can't discount. Interestingly enough, I have some things I want to show you pertaining to Tulsi Gabbard that's been all over the internet. And, she impresses me. I think one of the biggest criticisms he's trying to hammer her with has to do with the fact that she went to Syria at some point to meet with Assad. There is nothing wrong with meeting with heads of states, even individuals that are adversaries, and it should not be disqualified. I think the Trump doctrine, if you will, states that it's vitally important in the United States to meet with your enemies. You have to meet with people, ladies and gentlemen, to work out problems. I think that's the best way to do it. Even in the Bible, Jesus Christ would routinely do what? He would sit down and break bread with all kinds of people. And Jesus Christ talked to people that were not necessarily clean or people he was not supposed to associate with. So without looking at the Bible necessarily as a religious book, in this context, I'm saying look at the example in a business type setting, political type setting. I mean, there are direct parallels that I think you could take, like I just mentioned, and I think it has been shown. Donald Trump is the living proof. Look at North Korea, how he took it from a war footing, a nuclear footing, from Rocket Man, and that he was going to burn the sky with fire. He goes to the border, shakes the guy's hand. They build a friendship up to this day. I think it's fantastic. That is a great idea. There's no reason that we have to keep putting people down and keep talking about how bad people are. I think previous presidents were always told and kind of operated on the doctrine that it's below the dignity of the presidency to meet with people that seem to have unclean hands, to seem to be dictators or be Hitler or whatever, exactly like they're trying to do to Putin. So bringing this back to Tulsi Gabbard, she's just like Donald Trump in the sense that she will sit down and talk, negotiate, and discuss issues with her family. I'm sorry, with dictators or leaders of other parties. So I'm going to quickly go over to the comments. And Sapphire, you're right. Tulsi Gabbard is definitely a patriot. I got some interesting photos of her going around the internet. She not only is she intelligent and very smart, she is a beautiful woman, and she is the kind of person we need in the intelligence community. I think she'd be a perfect asset for that. And hello to Rosemary Fear. It's always a pleasure to have you in the chat, young lady. Thank you for being here, as always. And of course, everybody greeting you, saying hello. Okay. A true statement meets with all the, I totally agree. And I think the fact that Donald Trump has shown that meeting with leaders works, hopefully is going to change politics in perpetuity for the better. The fact that you have a president like Joe Biden, let's be perfectly honest about it, he cannot meet with somebody and have an intelligent discussion or try to bring down the temperature. As the Hur report stated, remember the Hur report from that one special prosecutor said, Joe Biden presents as a feeble old man, well-meaning old man. There's no way a jury would convict him of anything. He's not at home. He's not at home in his mind the way we need a president of the United States. And while we're on that subject, I hope people stop talking about that he should resign and that he should step down, that they should let the Vice President Kamala Harris be president of the United States. That is a terrible idea. I'm confident enough that the flunkies, the surrogates, the whatever below the president can effectively take care of the day-to-day operations of what's going on. I mean, it's not just the president. Obviously, he has a team, military individuals, advisors, secretaries of state. These people are all competent, and I'm prayerful. No, I would say I'm cautiously optimistic that everything will be fine until Donald Trump gets in office. And remember, Donald Trump is currently, right now, as president-elect, always talking to world leaders, always working to negotiate deals and to affect a smooth transition. So that's just the way I see it, and we'll see if that proves out over time. So now I want to switch to this next subject here. This starts getting into The View. All right. The View has been having, matter of fact, we'll start with that video. This was the View from yesterday. All right. And we're just going to take some snippets of this because I want you to hear the way that they're talking. And this one lady on here, this Sunny Holston, this woman, I need to start a special show or just a video that I release daily titled something like, what did Sonny say today? What kind of nonsense came out of her mouth today? Because she is a kook, period. She is somebody, in my opinion, that's always trying to bait people by race. She's always trying to basically throw gasoline on a very small flame. I mean, her perception of reality, I just don't know where it comes from. Obviously, there's too many people in our country today that are taught they are victims. And ladies and gentlemen, that has to stop. That has to stop. We are all brothers and sisters in Christ. It does not matter what our skin color is or what we look like. And we need to stop talking about this identity politics and splitting people up by race. It is not unifying. It does not help our country out. And I've just had it with that type of nonsense, that type of conversation. There's no reason for it. There's no need for it. Kamala Harris lost not because she's a woman, not because America is misogynistic or that we're xenophobe or whatever. She lost because she was a terrible candidate. People did not want what she stood for. We just did not want her brand of politics. She is clearly a socialist, if not a communist or a fascist, like they've called Donald Trump. I mean, in reality, she's not a fascist, but she definitely is a socialist. She was ranked as the most liberal senator in the United States when she served. She was to the left of Bernie Sanders. This is a woman that her first important decision to pick a vice president was that she picked somebody like crazy Tampon Tim from Minnesota, a state that has been Democratic for a very long time. When Ronald Reagan ran for re-election, 1984, he won every single state except for Minnesota. Minnesota is relatively a safe bet for the Democrats. It's just the way that people think up there. It's just the way the politics is up there. But instead of picking someone like, who is that from Pennsylvania? Josh Shapiro. Josh Shapiro would have been the perfect pick. It would have been her best chance to become president of the United States. He is a very popular governor there in Pennsylvania. He is Jewish. There's a lot of Jewish voters there. And he, even though I don't agree with his politics, he's very charismatic. He's very well spoken. And yes, he's highly intelligent. Kamala Harris lost because she was a terrible candidate. She would not do interviews. She tried the Joe Biden philosophy of how to get into the White House. Remember back in 2020, Joe Biden hid in the basement. I think that election cycle, my friends, is what we could only call a fluke, a statistical, scientific fluke. It was just a fluke of political nature brought about because of COVID. I think that that's about the only explanation I could come up with, because Donald Trump, although he lost, he barely lost. He lost in just enough places with just enough votes to give the election to Joe Biden. And I think that's one of the reasons it has caused so many people to wonder if there was not some type of irregularities about that election. And I don't want to dive any deeper into that because we are broadcasting on YouTube and I have to be respectful of their terms of service. So I'm very cautious about taking too much of a deep dive down that lane. Again, I'm working to come up with a solution where I can talk about those type of subjects without having to fear a strike or video removal. And I have had those problems, as we have discussed on this channel. But at any rate, we have this FCC chairman coming in. Listen to what The View is saying yesterday. I can only show maybe 30-second clip at a time because I don't want to have the video taken down for whatever. But let's listen to it together and then let's kind of dissect it together and see kind of where this goes. So we're going to bring this in and talk about it. I think you're going to find this interesting because it's pretty striking the way that it's come across to me. Here we go.
But when you have these types of allegations sitting on around so many of these people, I will also be watching the Hegseth, Alyssa, because I think if they stand up to Hegseth, I would have more faith that there are people looking out, because Gates was just universally despised and his reputation.
Okay, you're about to have Sweet Sonny take over.
State, though, he's liked in Texas.
It actually gave me some solace, because we do have to have checks and balances, and the role of the Senate is for advice and consent. And I was, very worried that Trump saying that he wanted these recess appointments. And I think he really thought that he could put someone up like Matt Gaetz, someone that he hadn't really vetted, someone that he just sort of put in there as nominated him as a whim.
Yeah, of course. She just wants you to think that all of Donald Trump's decisions, all of his appointments, so like she just said, they're just whims. He's basically just a fool that won an election.
Thinking that he had the Senate and that they would not object. Well, he doesn't have the Senate. He doesn't have Murkowski. He doesn't have Collins. He doesn't have McConnell. He doesn't have John Curtis of Utah, someone that we haven't.
Yeah, we call those people rhinos and a few other names, but I digress. So what?
Really heard much from. And so I think this is a good thing. I will say, whatever is in that ethics report must be more damaging than any of us know, because my understanding is that the Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee basically said, I want to see the report. And that is when the Republicans...
Will we see it? We'll still see it.
Oh, but there's been so much.
It has to be leaked.
There's been so much.
Well, she's right. I think we would all agree with that. I would imagine there is some bad news in that report. As a matter of fact, I probably would say that report coming out and the fact that investigation was going forward was probably one of the main reasons that Matt Gaetz went after Speaker, what was that speaker's name? I'm always drawing a blank on his name, but Kevin McCarthy. Yeah, remember from that fiasco for, I guess it's been about 2 years now, where Matt Gaetz made the motion and said, I want to have this guy thrown out. And of course, he was replaced eventually after much suffering and many votes with Speaker Mike Johnson. I think the reason he did that, in my mind, was he wanted to put a stop to the investigation going forward into his conduct. I think that is a fair statement to say, although it still happened, the investigation continued. So it was either an attempt to stop the investigation or it was payback. I think that's possible. That is a possible explanation for that. And no matter what they tell you right now, that report should not see the light of day unless someone breaks the law and releases that report. That is a private House report, and tradition has always been, again, there's no reason to break tradition or break the rules. They only generally release the report. But there's no general about it. They only release the report for an active member of Congress. If Matt Gaetz was to hypothetically return to Congress after resigning, they would have to start that report from ground zero. That's just the rules that they have. I don't like the
One
rules.
minute before you go on. I just got to note, we have to clarify that Santos eventually reached.
Say, this is the first one I want you to hear. This is the legal notes that they have to keep giving. I'm going to play that legal note, but let me just check my comments real quick here. And let's see here. Hey, we've got a new friend, Damien H. Thank you for being here. Hello, sir. They are absolutely insufferable. I agree with you, Damien. Thank you for being here, and well said. Everybody's welcome you already there, Damien. Thanks for being here. Hope everyone's doing well. American Nana, always love having you in here. And let's see. Yeah, we talked to Zach earlier today. American Nana. Okay. All right, great. Glad to have you in the comments. If y'all have any questions, Damien, just put it in there. Otherwise, let's continue. So here is one of what I counted to at least be 3 or 4 of these program notes that they're going to start getting into. Now, part of the reason they're doing this is because Donald Trump, of all people, is suing ABC. He's suing George Stephanopoulos for slander/libel. And you have a situation where now they are looking through the FCC with Donald Trump's new cabinet picks to start cracking down on these television stations. And I'm going to tell you how they can do that and why they can do that. And I'm going to tell you proof that this is what they're worried about. But here is the first disclaimer.
The plea deal after pleading guilty to wire fraud and aggravated identity.
Is that a legal note?
What a nice legal
Kind of. All right.
Kind of.
It's just it's a clarification.
I just hope that George Santos can still pee in Congress. But
Okay, so that was the first one. Now they're going to get started up here in just 1 second, and then here's going to be the second one.
the lame duck. And why do these Republicans feel the need to have to just bow to him now when they're not going to really get anything out of it?
Well, they have 4 more years, Joy. But, to Anna's point, let me say this.
Here she is.
We're all thrilled that Matt Gaetz, I agree with you, Alyssa, he would have been a very dangerous pick for the Department of Justice. But his new pick, Trump's new pick, Pam Bondi, I believe she's a dangerous pick as well because...
You know what? This is what I've been saying. I don't normally agree with Sunny, but she is right. I'm telling you, I think it's entirely possible that Pam Bondi might even be more of a disruptor than Matt Gaetz because Pam Bondi has experience with this type of an organization, heading an organization. I'm not saying Matt Gaetz wouldn't have been a cool pick to put in there, but I am saying I think Pam Bondi is the real deal. She's highly intelligent. She is a two-term AG from the state of Florida. She's a beautiful woman on top of that. She's well liked by people on both sides of the aisle. I think this could be a very, very good pick, and that's what Sunny is drilling down on her.
She is she supported Trump's false election claim. She was involved in the efforts to overturn the results. And so that is now the person that's going to be
But she was
chief law
let me say
enforcement.
this. She was on television. You know, that's the primary
She's not on
requisite.
television. Look,
No, she's
I've known
She
her.
was.
I have known Pam Bondi for
She's worked
many
with her.
years. I will tell you, I don't want to ruin her reputation with MAGA people, but Pam Bondi and I hung out a lot when she was Attorney General of Florida and she would come to Miami. We drank a lot together. I liked her.
Yeah, she was drinking buddies with Pam Bondi. Okay, so by the way, this woman, this Anna Navarro, have y'all noticed she's on CNN now a lot, along with the other lady that she's truly a rhino. She voted for Kamala Harris. That's supposed to be the Republican perspective on this program. There's really no Republican perspective on this program, but I think that's going to be changing. But
A lot. She's
let's
not
listen.
a kook. What's a little election denialism between friends? When, at least, listen, everything in life is relative.
I thought that was funny to be
It's
honest.
a very big
Sunny,
deal.
we got to take
Let
the
me,
wins
can
we
I
can find
continue
them, folks.
saying this? Everything in life is relative. There is no accusation of sexual harassment or assault against her. There's no
She's a
accusation
woman.
of
She's also qualified.
sexual
She was their Florida
misconduct
Attorney
with
General.
17-year-olds.
Also accusations.
She hasn't killed.
That's one good thing about putting up a female nominee. She just said, well, there's no allegations of sexual harassment or sexual impropriety against her. That's one thing about having a female that you nominate in front of the Senate, because let's be straight up, I don't think I've ever heard of a female candidate having a sexual abuse allegation or a rape allegation. I don't think I've seen that. Actually, that's been one of the criticisms too about this new world we live in. Ever since the Kavanaugh appointment to the U.S. Supreme Court, they're saying, and this may be good, this may not be good. Well, it's not going to be good because it shouldn't be based, again, on identity politics. It should be based on who is the best candidate. Even Ronald Reagan got this wrong. He said, I wanted to put up a black justice or a female justice, Sandra Day O'Connor. It shouldn't be based on if you're man, woman, black, white, red, yellow, whatever. It should not matter. It should be who is the best person. And I pray so much our country gets to a place like this. But I think that as we saw with Kavanaugh, I think the result is going to be in the future. You're going to see a lot more candidates put forward that are women, because women, like I said, they generally are not going to have these problems that a lot of men are going to have. I mean, anybody can make up a claim of abuse. And listen, remember back with Kavanaugh? Oh my goodness, we talked about this. How embarrassing. They were discussing whether or not he was a virgin in his college years. This is just terrible and embarrassing and humiliating and insulting. And it's in the history books for all of mankind forever, in perpetuity, this conversation. And not only that, the worst part for me would be my kids have to hear that nonsense. Oh my goodness.
She headed a whale. She hasn't stabbed a dead bear cub. I mean, my
But
God.
we can't minimize some of the things that she has done. And I think we have a clip of some of her former comments. Why don't we take a look
We
at
are
that?
thrilled to have won Pennsylvania with 87% of the vote in, and we're up almost 400,000 votes. So we're thrilled. We do have evidence of cheating. We are not going anywhere until they declare that we won Pennsylvania. These fake ballots that are coming in late. And back to the observation, they're not letting us watch the process.
Pam, did you just say fake ballots?
There could be. That's the problem.
Well, they can laugh about that all they want. And again, I have to take my comments carefully. But the reality is, there are almost always problems with an election. There's no such thing as there was no problems. There's always problems. The deal is where there are problems that were large that could make a difference in the election. For example, you always have people vote and they voted twice. That happens in every election. You have people that vote and they vote in the wrong state because they technically no longer qualify in the state that they're in because they moved residences, something along them lines. So what I find aggravating about it is you can't even speak up now and say how you feel. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. We call it out and say, no, you're wrong. There were no irregularities, or there wasn't nothing substantial in the way of fraud during that election. But the way they tried to shut that down is just unbelievable. Yay, God, thanks for being here in the chat and viewing with us today. Yay, God says, and they added her on the view and tried to say this. Yeah, I think that's fair. They're trying to mix it up there. See, and Yay, God says, we all know it's not going to help, just like the 5 on Fox News. Well, we'll see. The rumor mill out there is that a lot of these companies are on the chopping block. We know MSNBC. There's a lot of rumors that Elon Musk is looking to buy it, and even if that's a rumor, it is definitely the case that a lot of these left-leaning channels, even on YouTube, they've been losing subscribers out to you know what. The viewing audience of MSNBC and some of these liberal shows have been cut up to 60%. They say the average between 40 and 60% of their viewers have been lost. So that's the reason you see Morning Joe. You got Joe Scarborough and his wife Mika going down to kiss the ring, I guess is the way to say it, of Donald Trump. They realize it's a kind of a mea culpa. They know they're in trouble. And now that MSNBC, NBC, their parent company, is trying to sell them off. They don't want these hassles. They don't want an incoming Donald Trump administration with this FCC chairman that we're talking about overlooking them and hammering them and putting the screws to it. And the rumors I have heard is ABC, of all people. You know how woke and crazy ABC has become, right? ABC with one of their companies is the Walt Disney Company. They decided to have a big fight with Governor DeSantis. And for a while, they went to the mat with the state. You have to be some kind of stupid to go up against the state. The state has unlimited funds. Disney had it perfect where they were, right over here in Orlando, right beside me. They carved up, it's kind of like the villages, the villages here in Florida. They call them some type of special economic zone. And Disney discussed that with the state. And a long time ago, they won this. It's kind of like a freedom is the best way to say it. They could run their own fire department, police department. They can approve their own permits. I mean, wouldn't that be great for a business? Basically, the state says, we're going to anoint you king, and they put a crown on your head, and you have your own little kingdom to run pretty well any way you choose to run it, especially from an economic or development type area. Well, they decided they were going to have a fight with Governor DeSantis. Remember, this all started because Disney decided they were going to come up in opposition to Governor DeSantis, the bill that they nicknamed the Don't Say Gay bill. Okay, so again, it's one of these woke nonsense projects here. They went up against Governor DeSantis, and Governor DeSantis won. He stripped away their rights in that district, and he put in his own people to head that district. I mean, was that Eisner? He was the head of Disney at the time. I believe he resigned, or they should have, if they haven't already. You don't do that with a state. Your business is to make money for your shareholders, to turn a profit. That is your money. That's what your business is about. Disney has been fantastic at making entertainment, making cartoons and movies for families and for children. They should stay focused on that instead of worrying what the politicians are doing up in Tallahassee. It's really just that simple, and it's an outrage that they got so far off track. So at any rate, the bottom line is the rumors are The View is on the chopping block because they don't want the headaches, ladies and gentlemen. They don't want to go through the next year, the next 4 years, and who knows who takes over after that, and have to keep worrying about fighting an administration that's extremely aggressive and mad at them. And listen, it's one thing to fight with the state when you're a big company like the Walt Disney Company. You might be able to sit back and do a couple swings, right? but it's still the state. But when it comes to the feds, game over. Game over. The feds truly have unlimited resources. Unlimited. They can make your life a living HE hockey sticks. You know that. It's just the way it is. You don't mess with the feds. And I'm going to go ahead and let the cat out of the bag with Donald Trump's pick coming in as the head of the FCC. They are, Disney, MSNBC. These are companies that are independent and they're free, but not completely. For example, ABC uses public airwaves. Well, guess who controls the public airwaves and making sure the rules using the public airwaves are enforced? And you're right, it's the FCC, the Federal Communication Commission. And one of the many rules that they have is something along the lines of you have to give equal time between parties, this candidate versus that candidate. You can't be out there. I mean, they could at least argue this, doing the nonsense that they're doing on this show. They're not giving equal time. They're not being fair. I'm just telling you, there's a lot of rules that they can start going through and effectively do the following. I'm sorry, ABC company, your right to use the public airways is gone, revoked. And then they have to sit there and fight and go to court and spend all that money and all those resources. I mean, it could literally unravel, destroy an entire business. So these companies are finally waking up and saying, we need to take the sections of our company that are causing us headaches, that could cause the whole company to crumble. We need to either get them set up in their own independent branches, have nothing to do with us, or we just need to sell them to somebody else and look for the exit. And that's exactly what's going on. You're going to hear Sunny finish up her little bit complaint special section here. And then you're going to hear 2 disclaimers in a row. And then you're going to hear Anna Navarro. She's going to say, wow, it seems like today's show is nothing but legal disclaimers and stuff we're trying to sell. That's what it's come down to. Donald Trump's elections having a huge impact on all these people. And I'll get right to the comments in just one second.
So I don't think we need to minimize someone like that being who is supposed to be the people's attorney.
Agreed,
the
but I would
Department of
still
Justice.
take
She's
her
going
over
to be
Matt
Trump's
Gaetz.
attorney.
I would still take her over Matt Gaetz.
You can take her over Matt Gaetz, but
no, I'm not minimizing.
I would
but
take the dead bear cub over Matt Gaetz.
But I still won't give as much.
Robert Kennedy would also.
I won't give as much credit as Anna is getting about them standing up to anything, because right now it shouldn't be for people. It shouldn't be like this. Everyone that cares about crimes against women should be saying, no, that's out of bounds. And I know that we're.
Things are bad in the world, according to the liberals, when you have the ladies on The View fighting each other like a big cat fight. That is correct. There's trouble in paradise here on The View. Too bad.
Uniquely under a Donald Trump presidency, but there's got to be some things that we say this isn't allowed. They aren't allowed to sit with us.
Well, the
distinction is this: is just dreadful character flaws, the sexual misconduct with Matt Gaetz, but he was also deeply unqualified. She's been the Florida Attorney General.
She's supposed to be the Republican voice on The View. Just FYI, she used to be a former advisor to Donald Trump. Obviously, Donald Trump, I believe Donald Trump fired her, but whatever happened between them, she's definitely not a Donald Trump supporter. She went on the record that she voted for Kamala Harris. And when she told him that, they all had a big clap fest and told her how brave she is. And, you're the woman. And I'm sure she regrets at least going public with that.
Be perfect under Donald Trump.
We just elected a guy who denied he lost the election for 4 years, and the country elected them. So
it's been mainstream.
And now his lawyer.
She needs to get asked about that. She needs to get asked about that, and definitely, I'm sure she will.
And there is also some bribery accusations. I have a legal note.
Here it is.
You want to take this one, Joy, or are you
Matt
good?
Gaetz has long denied all allegations and has not been charged with any crime.
That's true.
Also, another legal note,
Number
Pete
2.
Hegseth's lawyer said he paid the woman in 2023 to head off the threat of a baseless lawsuit. He has denied any wrongdoing.
That's interesting. Pay off the witness.
He has denied any wrongdoing. And she got her teeth gritted. Look at that face right there. I'm like, he has denied any wrongdoing. Oh, man, you can tell she's just She just wants to spit fire right now, but that's the way it is. And they always say that, oh, he denied the election. He did. Again, they're trying to stop people from being able to dissent. People have free speech to say the election was not fair. If that's what they want to say, they should be able to say it. And here's the well, it's just very ironic. It is the Democrats traditionally in history that always come out complaining and screaming to the top of their voice that they got screwed out of the election. If you look on YouTube, I'll try to find one next time we talk, but there are tons of these compilations they put together showing everybody, including Hillary Clinton, up in arms that they have been ripped off, cheated out of a position, whatever. But let's listen to the tail end of this, and then we'll move on.
Okay, here's some good news about my life.
Okay.
I'm excited to announce that my new evening of monologues entitled My First Ex-Husband.
Yeah, at some point that Anna Navarro that I was telling you about, she was like, oh, everything we're doing is just turning out to be just basically a show involving having to give these disclaimers. And again, the reason they're giving these disclaimers is quite obvious. They know that they're taking serious risk to themselves personally for whatever they say, and it could jeopardize the entire company. So that is what they have to look forward, and that's all because this guy is coming in as chairman. We're just going to take a real quick peek at this because I want to move on to some of our crime issues. Here is commentary pertaining to this new chief coming in from the FCC. Switching back real quick to my comments. We'll see if there's any questions so that I can get this all set up here. Yeah, that's right, Sapphire. The Don't Say Gay bill. That's what they had. That's exactly what they started getting all bent out of shape on there. Thank you, yeah, God. Oh, my buddy Matt. Matt, thank you for coming back. It's good to have you in the house as always. Yeah, Orange King is coming. That's exactly right. Right on the spot here. This is why I don't get along with women. They take over you, and I find it rude. Yeah, there are some rude people, women included. Very true. Yay, God. They are a big liability for Disney. Thus, legal statements being issued. That's exactly right. Yay, God. Absolutely. They are worried about the obvious litigation that can ensue from their ridiculous comments. And if you think about it, I always like to put myself in the situation of the other person. If I am the person in charge of these companies, that's exactly what I would be afraid of. I would be thinking, man, how do we navigate to where we can avoid these lawsuits? Because even if someone doesn't prevail on a lawsuit, it really doesn't matter, ladies and gentlemen. To defend a lawsuit, especially these type of lawsuits, is extremely time consuming and it is expensive. And don't let anybody tell you, oh, you get your money back or you'll get refunded once the courts dismiss the case. Listen, that happens. It does happen, but it's very difficult for it to happen. Most cases don't qualify for attorney reimbursement. And in addition to that, depending on who you're sued or who is suing you, that person may not have any money anyway. So even if you got a judgment, it's basically a piece of paper. The judgment's nothing unless you know how to collect on the judgment. And Matt, the golden age, absolutely. The golden age is exactly right. World peace. My 401k made a lot of cash. Orange, I love it. Always like to hear people making a lot of cash. My buddy Sapphire, rumor is that they are about to be canceled. I sincerely hope so. So we'll see how it all pans out. Okay, we're caught up on the comments for now. Let's take a quick peek at this. This is a video. Trump makes pick for FCC and Energy Secretary. Let's just listen to a little bit of what they discuss about the incoming FCC. And remember, this is the guy that is going to take a whip. He's going to take a chainsaw, whatever you want to use. And he is really going to terrify, rightly so, these people that have been abusing these airways for quite some time.
Ali Rafa joins me now from West Palm Beach, Florida, to break it all down for us. Ali, so we're going to get into some of the controversy in some of these picks in just a minute. But first, tell us more about who President-elect Trump is putting forward to lead the Department of Energy and the FCC.
Yeah, Savannah, good morning. Well, as you mentioned, we saw this steady drip of announcements for President-elect Trump's cabinet continue over the weekend, with Trump announcing his pick for fracking company CEO Chris Wright to lead the Department of Energy. And he's chosen the FCC's top Republican, Brendan Carr, to lead that independent agency that regulates the country's communications. And Wright has no prior government experience.
That's the guy right there, I believe. That's the guy that's going to be heading the FCC.
He is a staunch defender of fossil fuels, and as a defender of that, we expect him to help fulfill Trump's longstanding promise to maximize oil decision, but also environmental advocacy groups condemning this pick of Wright, who has denied that there's a worsening policies for years. He has slowly started to embrace Trump's
FCC
policies and Trump's beliefs when it comes to big tech and the media. And the president-elect, in a statement announcing this pick of Carr, called him a warrior for free speech and says he has fought against the regulatory lawfare, stifling Americans' freedoms and held back our economy. And as you
he's in lockstep, ladies and gentlemen, with the Trump administration, with the incoming President-elect Donald Trump. He is in lockstep with him. This guy, I've heard him in other speeches since his nomination, and definitely before his before Donald Trump tapped him to actually head the FCC. And I think this is going to be one of the sleeper appointments, if you will. It's not getting as much press coverage, but I know what's going on. I pay attention to this type of stuff. Y'all know that I am all about free speech. I love free speech. And again, I don't want to get on my soapbox right now about that, because that's not exactly what I want to focus in on today. But just like Elon Musk talks about a lot on X, and I don't think we really understand how come it's so important, so valuable in our lives. If we have a true democracy, we have to have free speech. When our free speech goes away, our country goes away. And that is the sad fact. And unfortunately, that's what's going on in Ireland. It's going on in Britain. It's going on all across the European Union. It's sad. It's unfortunate. I will have many broadcasts, Lord willing, coming up in the near future discussing just that subject. So we're gonna bounce around to a few subjects, but I want to update you on some of these other cases we've been following. Let's go ahead and take a look. This is that story of that police arrest of this woman. Her name, it's a Georgia mother speaks out after the arrest because her 10-year-old son was walking alone. This is in Georgia. It's a small city. This is, again, the problems. One of the many problems we have in our society right now is you have this over-policing, the misuse of police. You have police thinking they know how to raise our kids. And unfortunately, in the United States, the reality is, and this is going to be hard for some of us, all right, but I'm just telling you the way it is. You have your children at the pleasure of the state. It's just the way it is. If there is a problem, an allegation, if they believe that there is something that violates the law pertaining to your kids, they will and can take your kids away. And you're thinking, oh, I'll get them back. Well, it doesn't quite work like that. Generally, they take them away for a minimum 30 days, because that's when they give you a hearing before a juvenile judge, that handles kid type cases. You have to go through the expense, generally, of getting your own attorney. Now, they will give you an attorney when it involves the possibility of losing your children. But you can imagine how it is in life. You get what you pay for. That's just the way it is. You might look out and get a good attorney, but again, you're still without your children. So let's say at the 30-day mark, generally what the judge does at that point is they set it for another hearing. And as much as this pains me to say, you're really at the discretion of these bureaucrats, these deep swamp creatures on a state level that effectively control your kids and your access to your own flesh and blood. It's outrageous. And that's the problem this woman here is going to find. I applaud her for stating on the front end that because allegedly the police said, hey, listen, if you sign a deal with DFACS or whatever they call it in your particular state, if you sign a deal with them, a parenting plan that, you're not going to let your kid do this or do that, we'll go ahead and drop charges. They're just hijacking your kids. They're just taking your kids over. But unfortunately for her, if she doesn't have sufficient funds to take care of this and to hire and keep a very powerful and good attorney that has resources to fight on her behalf, she's going to find she's going to have more and more problems because they have the ability to ratchet up the pressure. I promise you that. And it's very, very painful. Now, the good thing she's got going on her side, she's got media attention. Thank God for the age of YouTube, X, all these other platforms that we have. So let's dive into this without further ado, and let's take a quick peek at the story. This is the same one we talked about before.
A mother of 4 was arrested and could face a year in jail after her then 10-year-old son was walking alone in their small town in Georgia.
You're under arrest.
For what?
For the incident we talked about earlier today.
What am I under arrest for?
For reckless endangerment.
And how was I recklessly endangering my child?
We're not talking about it.
Soren, call mommy and tell them they're taking you to jail because you decided to walk down the street.
Let go of your hands.
That's not his fault.
Brittany Patterson and her lawyer, David DeLugas, joins us now. Wow. Brittany, David, I'm so glad to have you on. Brittany, I can't tell you how outraged I am looking at that video of you being arrested. By the way, this is the same government, but I know this was a state government, but our country allows children to walk across our border alone. And your child was going to the grocery store in a little town. Just before we talk about what happened, how traumatizing has this been for your family?
It's definitely been.
Well, you could tell she's upset, which obviously is no surprise. But imagine the cops show up at your door, like you just seen. And you could hear the one male cop in the back. We're done talking. Turn your ass around. We're going to lock you up. That's the end of it. You're in a bad situation. God forbid any time that was to happen to you. Just a terrible situation to be in. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I walked to the store many times. We had a Dairy Queen. I don't know how far it would be, maybe a mile from the house, something like that. Used to go all the time to different stores and different whatnot. And despite what they tell us nowadays, especially in these smaller communities, the chance of having crime happen to you is really statistically low. I mean, it just is. It's low. Now, at 10 years old, again, I'm just trying to be fully honest with you. I would much rather kids go in groups, especially female kids. I'm just telling you, I would never let a 10-year-old female. I don't think any female should walk by herself. That's just my opinion. I think groups is the way to go. But it gets to the point to where, are we going to start throwing parents in jail? Throwing parents in jail because their kid in this small town, Fannin County, Georgia, her 10-year-old son walked to the store. Are we going to raise a group of kids that just has helicopter parents required at all times, are not allowed to go out into the environment, into the world, explore, learn how to handle themselves? I mean, I just find this so outrageous.
A little traumatizing. My kids have never seen anything like that or been exposed to anything like that. So really,
there she is
with
handcuffs.
With police or law enforcement, to see them taking their mother out of their home in handcuffs, I think was pretty traumatizing.
So your son was 10 years old. You didn't give him permission to go, but had he asked you if he could walk to that store, would you have allowed him to go?
I probably would have, yeah.
And so why do you think law enforcement is pursuing this? And I should let people know, law enforcement says they'll drop the charges if you agree to put a GPS tracker on your son's phone, on your phone, so you can track your son. Why is law enforcement pursuing this? What is going on in this town?
I don't know. I can't begin to understand what's going on in their minds. So that's a mystery to me as well. But I do want to clarify that they never officially, in writing or verbally, have offered to drop any charges. They said, possibly, maybe, if I sign the safety plan. But that was never anything official in writing.
David, you're the lawyer. What are the next steps for this family? And is the message to parents, at least in this community, that unless you're watching your kids 100% of the time, you're a bad, negligent parent?
Thank you for having us on. The answer is parents everywhere need to be concerned because somebody with a uniform, a badge, and a gun can go get an arrest warrant at any time for anything. And here,
That's
the
true.
statute
That is
she was
true.
charged with was declared unconstitutional by the Georgia Supreme Court in 1997. So that's problematic. This deputy also told her, yeah.
Did y'all hear that? I don't know if it came through clearly or not. Her attorney is saying that the section she was charged under Georgia law was already declared unconstitutional by the Georgia Supreme Court years ago. It apparently did not stop these police officers from enforcing this provision on her. So effectively, they made what I could only discuss or call a false arrest at a minimum.
Yes, it's illegal for someone 10 to walk, and that it's clearly not. By the way, he was 11 within a few days. And the irony here, too, is the next day was Halloween, where kids walk, often without their parents, door to door in the dark and knock on the doors of strangers. And yet he was in the middle of the day just walking.
Isn't that extremely upsetting? It's like the attorney said, he was days within being 11 years old. So this kid was not like 9 years old in one day, because I'm at 9 years old, you're getting young. I get it. But this kid was effectively 11 years old, arrested. The mom was arrested because he was walking on the day before Halloween. What is going on? This has to change. This is wrong. And I agree with you, Matt. It is a complicated situation. A kid in the state, very difficult. And I do want to say this. I want to make sure everybody clearly understand. I am not anti-police. I am not a defund the police guy. That is ludicrous. That is stupid. I am a person that wants to see our policing become better, to have higher professional standards. I like to see our policing truly become community focused. I would like to see the culture shift from protecting the men and women in blue and more along the lines of really worrying and caring about, with a focus on it, caring about the people they serve. I would like to see, for example, the police officers, their boss is effectively a civil set of people from the community. I think the culture could change. And, I joke about this, but it's true. I do not like to quote Kamala Harris, but she was right on one thing she did say, and that has to do with policing. It needs to be reimagined. I think that is probably something worth looking into. For example, I would like to see the police do what they used to do years ago. Instead of riding one in a car, I think they need to be two in a car, always paired up. I realize with communication, people are generally pretty close. I just think for the officers' safety, it's a good idea to have two officers per vehicle. Just my take on it, just my opinion. I will say one last thing too. A good first step is what they've already been doing, and that is a lot of the police officers out there, the policing community, have cameras, body cameras. I think that those should be mandated for every police officer in all capacities. I think it's wonderful to have those cameras like that. Let's be honest about it. If you know you're on camera as a citizen and you have an interaction with police officer, you're going to be on your best behavior. I mean, most of us are. We all act a certain way when we know we're on camera than when we're not on camera. Police officers are definitely going to act one way when they're not on camera. They're going to act a different way when they're on camera. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, and I think that is pretty good. So let me just make sure we catch up on these comments. What do y'all think about that, though? I realize it is and yeah, God, you're right. Attorneys make an excellent case for the situation. Even though she's got an attorney, it's still extremely expensive. And a lot of these attorneys, it just costs a lot of resources to go after. It costs a lot to defend a suit like this. And a lot of these police officers are going to stand behind what's called qualified immunity, which effectively means it's very difficult to get any money out of them. But shining a light on it like we're doing right now, I think that's a great first step. In American Anna, I'm like you, babysitting 11 years old. I love our police officers. They need respect. We do need to get the bad ones out. I'm sure we all could agree with the obvious. So when y'all hear me talk about police officers, it's never in the light of that I assume the worst out of them. But I will tell you this, I've had personal interactions with police officers. And I have seen police officers do things they should not do. I think that's the best way to put it. We have to make sure that we all understand that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We need to support our police officers, but we need to make sure that they're doing what they should be doing to our community. I think that's the best way to put it. And in this particular case, a mother arrested in a small town because her almost 11-year-old child walked to the grocery store half a mile from her house, whatever it is. I think most reasonable people would say that is ridiculous. Matt says children should have an attorney at law. Yeah, they will. If it becomes something that goes further into the system. Matter of fact, I think if they actually take your child, that the child is immediately appointed a child, what they call a guardian ad litem. They all do that. But again, that just further illustrates what I tell you is the things to be concerned about as a parent, because then basically your child no longer has a mind of their own, I guess is the best way to say it. Now it's up to their attorney, allegedly acting on their behalf, to decide if that child is best placed with you or somewhere else. To me, it's just, am I the only one that thinks like this? Your children are your children. That doesn't mean you can abuse them and hurt them and stuff like that. But it's not the case in life that we're guaranteed the best parents in life. Our parents are our parents. It's what God's will is. Your parents are who your parents are. And yeah, you may not have the best mom. You may not have the best dad, but there needs to be a high bar before you arrest mom. She looks like she's a great mother to me. She looks like a very, very protective, a very loving mother, just the video clips and information I've seen. I just think it's, I think we need to tread carefully. So on a good note, I am glad we were able to cover some of Donald Trump's speeches and some of his nominations, I should say. I want to show you this picture of Tulsi Gabbard. This is pretty interesting. Not only is she highly intelligent, as we have talked about many times on here, but y'all have to see this. This picture is currently going viral, I guess is the best way to say it. She is stunningly beautiful. Let's take a look at this here. This is a picture of Tulsi Gabbard right here. She's obviously on some beach or something right there. Just physically beautiful, highly intelligent. She is a decorated former, what is she had the Marine? She's a lieutenant or something like that. I forgot her exact rank off the top of my head, but what a beautiful woman, very intelligent. She's a patriot, and I hope they give her a fair shake at the hearing that's coming up. And I think it's a blessing. We got Donald Trump on his way back to the White House. Please don't worry about that Ukraine war. American Ann, I'm specifically talking to you. It's all going to work out, ladies and gentlemen, one way or the other. I'm very confident that God has everything in his hands, and we have Donald Trump that is a man chosen for a time such as this. So I want to wrap it up here. Appreciate everybody being with me today. It's always a pleasure to have you come visit me. If you haven't done so already, please hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe. All my channels, I'm on just about everything. It's generally at Reach JR Dukes. On X, it's simply at Reach JR Dukes. Otherwise, it's always at JR Dukes. And I try to always post on X when I'm about to go live. If you turn your notifications on, the YouTube, and you hit subscribe and hit the bell, you will know exactly when the next time I go live. So that's a good way for us to communicate. My website is always www.jrdukes.com. So you can always find me and know exactly where I'm at. My contact information is on the bottom of the screen. Feel free to text anytime or contact me by email. Really appreciate everyone being here today. I want to say before I go that I hope God is blessing each and every one of you, that you find his special anointing on you, your family, your children. And in God's name, I pray for that blessing on each and every one of you. So, my friends, I always say, keep that mind free, never give up. Until next time, I am J.R. Dukes.